Got a note that he's signing in right now, so just be one more moment, please. Commissioner Mullet?
Yes, this is Commissioner Mullen. I'm here.
Very good. All right, Commissioner Didier, I believe we're ready to go.
Okay, it is 9 o'clock, and this is Tuesday, January 12th, 2021, for the regular county board meeting of Franklin County. I call the meeting to order, and I would like to start a new trend here with a prayer, and I encourage the other commissioners to also engage in future meetings, and we'll rotate the prayer between the commissioners. So if you would bow your heads. Heavenly Father, we give thanks for the blessings we have received. We pray for the courage, wisdom, and grace to guide Franklin County in its decision-making so that your will be done. Amen. Now, if you would please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. We pray for the courage, wisdom, and grace to guide Franklin County in its decision-making so that your will be done. Amen. Now, is there a delay on this?
Commissioner Mullen, can you mute your phone?
We were getting some delayed feedback there.
Okay, we need to do the pledge again, please. Start it right now.
Yes.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, with that, first item on the agenda is the Potts and Associates legislative updates. And I believe we have Zach Kennedy only, and Jim. Jim has some broken ribs and is in the hospital. Zach, is that correct?
That is correct. Yes, sir. It's, he was trying to be a tough guy and, didn't really tell any of us how bad he was hurting. And so he ended up in the hospital.
Well, we'll be praying for him. Please proceed.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. And I'll keep you updated on that as well. I'll make sure I at least let Karen know so she can kind of keep you guys informed. In terms of the legislative stuff this year, obviously, based on our previous conversation, some of the concerns definitely are going to be around criminal justice reform, noxious weed stuff. We're also looking at a lot of funding, interesting stuff going on with the budget. Of course, the governor has put out his budget, and they're going to try and come to terms. He has a knack for vetoing anything that doesn't really fall in line with what they want to do. So, we're kind of looking at that as our guidance, and everything that we've talked about with the governor in terms of his policies and, the things that he would like to implement, whether it's fiscal or just a policy, is what they're looking at, and that includes, anything with carbon. They're going to need new taxes, and then obviously the criminal justice reform this year. Some of the stuff that's really been brought to our attention, really interesting, let's call it, criminal justice bill is House Bill 1054. And in that they basically want to disarm all the police. And that goes all the way down to removing an officer's ability to use a canine to apprehend or arrest a suspect. They even list they want to take their rocket launchers away and tanks. I don't know what your guys' sheriff has got down there, but I'm guessing they probably don't have any rocket launchers or tanks. So the bill is very inclusive and is a pretty big threat to the ability of law enforcement to actually perform their duties and do their jobs. We're going to see a lot of that this year. That doesn't necessarily mean that we need to be, on high alert. We're going to watch this stuff. I will tell you right now, there is criminal justice reform coming, and there's nothing we're going to be able to do about some of it. Obviously, we're going to do everything we possibly can. What we're really thinking we're going to see in terms of the criminal justice stuff is going to be things like body cameras required and how you have to use them. The other thing, and this is kind of the nebulous one that's going to be really scary, is probably civil liability for officers' action. So an officer, potentially could do everything legally correct, could do everything under their department's policy completely correctly, could have the body cams on, could have had all the training and everything. They could still be held civilly liable, potentially for hurting somebody's feelings, in the future. That's like your worst case scenario, right? So we're watching out for that stuff. And then obviously funding issues. And really what we think is going to have the biggest impact down on the county level is probably going to be training requirements. Because that's going to fall right in your budget purview. There's probably not going to be much money, if any, coming down from the states. And realistically, we've seen, there's really not a good curriculum outline in terms of criminal justice training, whether it's sensitivity training, use of force training, and they don't have any clear standards. And that's going to be an issue for us as we go into this. So I know the Spokane Police Department, out of their training facility, they've started some different techniques, and local sheriff's departments around the state have done the same, and the country, so the law enforcement community is doing their best, I think, and working together to try and find or provide some solutions that are going to be satisfactory, so they're not on the chopping block completely and completely handcuffed, no pun intended, from doing their job. And so we're watching those really closely. The governor's budget is putting a lot of money towards, different things that I think are going to end up kind of getting whittled down a little bit. They still haven't figured out their public disclosure stuff or open public meeting stuff in the legislature. They've been able to kind of punt this year because everything's online. They say, oh, look, here we go. It's all available, and everybody's just having phone conversations or whatever they're doing. So we're going to have to probably revisit that stuff here coming up, probably next session or the 2023 session, that biennium. The one thing that we are watching that has been a pretty big, it's been on our radar for several years. Representative Bowles is still talking about their property tax penalty bill, removing the penalties for not paying property taxes right now. The bill hasn't been dropped yet. I haven't checked this morning, but the conversation is still there. So we're watching that one really closely, and I believe that Clark County, actually, they implemented that policy in Clark County, and apparently there was pretty good evidence that even though people could pay their property taxes, they elected not to, and it was a pretty big ding to the county. So at least now there is some empirical data there, from somebody who actually tried it to see what the citizens would do, and their feedback is extremely negative. And that was one of the arguments. I said, well, no, it'll work, and it is pretty idealistic. Well, now we have evidence showing that it doesn't. People take advantage of it. So,
hey, Zach, this is Commissioner Peck. I'd like to see if I can't redirect this to something more contemporaneous, like Senate Bill 5114. Can you give us some insight as to whether or not this bill has any legs, and who might be doing a companion piece in the House?
Oh, okay. So in the House, we have not seen this come out, but I mean, obviously, with Senators Braun and Mullet putting this thing forward, I think that they're obviously. Did you guys get a chance by any means to watch the opening ceremony yesterday for the legislature. The conversation around that, it was split right down party lines, talking about opening up to the public, the legislative process and everything. This falls right in line. In terms of reopening the state.
Hey, Zach, would this immediately take us to phase 2 and then die, a year from now?
That's what it would look like, you know, but the problem you've got, and if you listen to the arguments that, especially Senator Billig, made, you know, the comments he had in the opening ceremonies yesterday, speaking specifically to, well, the program that we have right now and the lockdowns we have right now are based on these people who are PhDs, doctors, saying we need to be locked down. What I'm getting at is the sentiment from the controlling party, the Democratic Party right now in Olympia is no way. The governor has kind of a show, you know, they've got hundreds of guards around the Capitol building right now. You know, and it's kind of a show of force and an overture saying, no, you're going to stay how it is. Every Republican senator or representative who stood to speak said, look, we need to get our businesses open. People need to be able to make a living. We need to get back to, and it's not back to normal. That's not the language they're using. They say we need to start our economy back up. Like, this is not an option. We have to do this.
Back to phase 2.
We need to get back to phase 2.
Zach,
correct.
Paragraph 3 of the proposed statutory amendment says that the legislature intends to regularly review the best available public health data to determine whether additional action should be taken. Is there nothing been proposed on either side about putting a date like 14 days or 12 days or 10 days or 30 days before the legislature has to review the governor's actions on these? Is anybody even considering?
The Republican amendments, every time they get an opportunity, they are going to try and put an end date to all of this. You know, and if not an end date to it, say, hey, let's review.
Back. 51.
This is, yes.
Sponsored by Senator Braun, a Republican, and it has no 14 days in it.
No, it doesn't. What they're trying to do is just bring the issue to the forefront. I would say the chances of this particular bill getting a legitimate hearing are slim right now. You know, the lines are drawn clearly in the sand, and I don't know what it's going to take. And I think that, you know, you've seen right now in terms of businesses operating, you can take the gyms as a great example. You know, fitness centers, a lot of them have applied for wellness center status so that they can operate. People are trying to find a way around this right now. And we're not having much luck. You know, bills like this where they're trying to say, hey, we immediately want to come to phase 2. You know, we're kind of being stonewalled right now.
Zach, here's my concern. This bill is sponsored by the Republican lead in the Senate, Senator Braun, right? The minority leader. In the most that they had, we'll say the stamina to request, was that we moved to phase 2, not anything to amend the statute to say the governor's got to have it reviewed. Point is it your sense that anything that would require the governor to have the legislature review his decisions the way the second half of the emergency statute requires, right, for administrative actions, that has to be reviewed every 30 days by the four corners. Is there no effort to get the full law under that same 30-day review? Or is it your sense that that's just a non-starter?
Right now, it is early on, but the feeling is it's really kind of a non-starter, and through the legislative process, anything that they try to do, if the House and the Senate, maybe they get a few defectors and they actually get a bill through, the governor's going to veto whatever that might be, and they don't have enough votes, whoever they might be, the people that get this through, they don't have enough votes to override a veto on that.
Okay.
And I think the stigma here coming up to the January 20th inauguration is, we've already seen the protesters break down the gate. They went through the gate, the governor's mansion, and marched around on his lawn. I think that kind of set the tone. There's fences up, there's armed guards all over the place. Until things calm down after the inauguration on the 20th, I don't think that we're going to see much latitude or much acceptance of any changes to that effect.
I'm just concerned that our opening request from the leader of the Senate, a Republican, appears so anemic. Because it's going to be harder to ask for more later. Typically, you ask for everything up front and then you negotiate downward, not come back in later and try and ask for more than they refused in the first place.
Yeah, and I think I agree with you. I think it is, anemic is a very, very good word for it. There is the amendment process, of course. I think what they're looking at is, to be honest with you, I think they're just trying to get it heard in a committee. Early on, we were told in no uncertain circumstances, if the bills that are introduced don't fit into three categories, one is carbon, two is new taxes, and three is criminal justice reform, don't bother, they're not going to be heard. So I think that what we're trying to do right now, or what this bill specifically is looking at doing, is just getting heard. They just want to get it in front of somebody, and I don't know if they're going to get a hearing.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting strategy.
Well,
I do understand what you're saying.
It's going to be that kind of year. It's going to be a rough year this year. So we're going to, getting in front of the committees, getting much done. Representative Dent is actually pushing, and of course, being told no way, he's pushing to say, hey, let's convene, do a couple of things, and then adjourn until April, when all this stuff, obviously not COVID blows over, but all the stuff from the election and any protests, any threats like that are perceived or real, kind of blow over. The weather's nicer. We can have windows open. Maybe we can let people back into the Capitol building, and actually do our jobs. Right now, the answer is not a no. It's a hell no to that. So, there's proposals that are kind of flying around and trying to look at getting some sense behind this, and we're not getting much traction right now.
Commissioner Mullen, do you have any questions for Zach?
Not at the moment, no. Okay.
Zach,
Well,
Zach, I have a few questions here.
Okay.
Under the governor's newest plan, on January 5th, 2021, the governor announced the newest plan called Healthy Washington - Roadmap to Recovery. This plan goes into effect January 11th and replaces the previous phased approach. All counties in the state have been divided into groups and will need to pass certain metrics as a whole before proceeding to the next phase. Now, he is now putting another layer of bureaucracy in between us and our state government, where he's going to appoint a person for each one of these groups, 8 groups of counties. Doesn't this have to be passed by the legislature and for him to have that kind of authority? I know he's using some health reason to push this through.
Well, and you are absolutely correct. And so what they're looking at is kind of reforming new public health districts. And, the regional service networks, the old RSNs were kind of dissolved, and that network was dismantled here really effectively over the last 5 years. And your answer to that question is absolutely that will have to be a legislative action for anything long term. They may have some latitude to operate under, emergency guidelines, I guess, under declared emergency, but there is some question. I mean, you see what's happening in California, they're literally putting together a recall vote. So,
Yes.
To answer your question, yes.
Zach?
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner Peck here. You are extending legal advice, and I would caution you about that. I'm not convinced that it has to be approved by the legislature. I think it's within the governor's authority, but in my opinion, you're extending legal advice, and I would just caution you very seriously about that.
Well, yeah, in that case, definitely, I will let you know I am not an attorney, and I can only speak to what we've seen in the past. And any of this stuff is absolutely has to be reviewed by staff attorneys, whether they're counties or the legislature. And of course, all the legislation that might come out or anything is subject to review by the Supreme Court and can be challenged as long as, you can make a good case. So absolutely, it's
Okay.
nothing is for sure.
All right. Well, I want to move on to the next point here. In talking to Senator Schessler, when he was a minority leader of the Senate, he told me that he has only signed one extension of this proclamation. Is this being signed every time by the four corners, or is it only being signed by the governor?
That's a good question, and I'm going to have to ask.
Please do, and I'd like you to report back on that. Lastly, the mandates that are being thrown down on us. The county is being blindsided on legislation involving mandates. In the future, we are in need of advance information regarding scheduled hearings on any proposed legislation that has a potentially adverse impact on our ability to budget. So then, would you please provide a list of such legislation, the date, the time, and location of any scheduled hearings, a list of those who scheduled to speak in support or in opposition. And I'd like to remind anybody listening out there that in 95, a statutory was passed, RCW 43.135.060, prohibiting of new or extended programs without full reimbursement from the state. And we have our defense attorney is being inundated with counsel that he cannot provide. How are we supposed to handle this?
Well, and technically, you're speaking to unfunded mandates is really what you're getting right back around to.
Yes, sir.
And that's a conversation that realistically is going to have to be taken up. I mean, any individual county could bring that issue to the courts. I think it's obviously more impactful if multiple counties do that. But you do have, as we've spoken about before, you do have precedent now in terms of the ballot boxes, the election ballot boxes. There's, the two components of that case. Number one, they said it was unconstitutional to require you to provide those ballot boxes without funding. And number two, the court came back and said that the state had to reimburse the counties. So both of those two put together, it is precedent. You can't predict how, say, a case addressing the indigent defense money would play out. However, there are similarities in terms of funding provided and mandates from the state. And, there is relatively decent ground on which to stand now. And that was the plan. You can't go after the big fish all at once, and there may be other things to tackle. But yes, unfunded mandates, pretty much all the counties interpret the Constitution, are unconstitutional. And that is a big issue, especially down the low, at the lowest level when you're dealing directly with the people. And that's where the county commissioners come in you are a direct liaison to your constituents, and you live in the community, you serve in the community, and you work for your community members. They have your cell phone number, they have your home phone number, they have your email, they have everything. And you guys live it.
Exactly.
And so that's a big deal.
I was on the Washington State Association of Counties subcommittee on litigation that got the counties to each provide some funding so that we could sue the state on the ballot box issue. And we did that and we won. And it was to create a precedent for unfunded mandates, which are generally speaking unconstitutional. But people need to know that when it comes to indigent defense, which is providing county funded legal representation to indigent people who have been accused of crimes in our county, there are other statutes that bear on that, and it is not as clean as the ballot box issue. The ballot box issue does provide some precedent, but be careful about conflating the two just because ballot boxes were deemed an unfunded mandate. On the indigent defense, it's not quite as simple, but that is one of the higher priorities that WASAC has been working on for several years, and the ballot box litigation was specifically intended to lay the groundwork. So just wanted to provide that background for you, but not every unfunded mandate fits in the unconstitutional box, unfortunately. Thanks.
That is a very good clarification, and that is correct. And in all reality, if there is a secondary lawsuit brought, it may very well not be indigent defense because of those reasons you just listed, Brad. Really, because it is messy. There are other ones that are more clear that they could go after to build more precedent. So we'll see what happens.
I think you're correct that is the more likely path.
So with that, Zach, and I guess Commissioner Peck, since you are attending WASAC, is there any legal action at this moment being proposed against this newest plan of the governor by WASAC or any other, NORCO or any other group that's representing the counties about this new layer of bureaucracy that's going to be thrown upon the people of Washington?
So Zach, I'll answer first. I'm not aware of any litigation that is pending. I'm not aware of WASAC being involved in promoting any litigation against the governor. And there is a committee established at the combination of WASALFO, which is the State Association of Local Public Health Officers, and WASAC to propose changes and in some respects to oppose, not in some respects, in most respects to oppose the regionalization that the governor is trying to do. But to answer your question specifically, I'm not aware of any pending litigation on that point.
Yeah, and likewise, I'll echo that sentiment. No, we're not aware of any active or pending legislation. There's a lot of conversations, much like this one, going on in the background. Saying, "Hey, what do we do? How do we approach this? How do we get our businesses back open?" But no word right now of actual litigation.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Commissioner Mullen, have you got anything to state at this point?
No, not at the moment, no.
Well, thank you very much. Well, update, Zach.
Yeah, we really appreciate your time, guys, and I'll get back with you on some of this stuff, on the proclamations, and then, of course, any of the hearings that are really going to affect your budget, we'll get you guys information on those. Or your ability to react. We will absolutely get you information on those, and you'll be able to, because it is a kind of a fluid process this year, and people can sign in remotely. What we'll do is we'll get you a link so that you can go in and check, because people can sign in even during the hearing, pro and con. So you'll be able to address that. So we will get you that information, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Zach, and give Jim our best.
Absolutely.
All right. Next Next on the agenda, we have Mr. Sullivan with the Human Services on an update for the Veterans Program. Are you there, Kyle?
I am. Can you hear me okay?
I can. Thank you.
All right. Great. Thank you. And so I just wanted to come before the board, talk a little bit about the Veterans Advisory Board specifically. And so the previous advisory board ended up serving a little bit longer than what they had originally intended. COVID hit, and they had agreed to kind of stick it out, you know. And then again, I think COVID lasted longer than at least I had assumed it would. And so so the last several advisory board meetings that we had scheduled, our participation from the advisory board was minimal, and in some cases, the only people attending the meetings were my staff and Tim from the auditor's office. And so I'd asked Nidia in my office, who kind of oversees the day-to-day, the vouchers and all that stuff with the program, to send out an email to the current advisory board, letting them know that we were in the process of soliciting new members, and asking if any of them had a desire to continue on. And then, of course, you know, we're always looking for additional veterans that are interested in serving on the board. And so we didn't get any response back from the current advisory board on their willingness to continue in their roles. And so I think my hope is that you have copies of the 3 applicants that we did receive. And I'll be honest, I'm not sure, you know, why we've kind of struggled to get applicants, other than, you know, I think it's easy to blame COVID, but unfortunately, I think that's what I'm going to do. You know, we've reached out to the different service agencies. You know, it's my opinion, maybe I need to do I need to do a little bit more with regard to that. We'd like to have a five people on the board. These applicants, although I think the applicants are great and would do great on the board, we're still needing more. Now, one thing that came up, and so it was too late to pull this from today's agenda. I found out about 15 minutes before the meeting. Per RCW, over at least no fewer than half of the advisory board members need to be tied to a veteran service agency. And so coming into the meeting today, I believed I had 2 of the 3 that were involved with one of the veteran service agencies. Like I said, about 15 minutes before the board, before this meeting, I found out that Steve Leto is no longer with the VOC, and so I don't have any information on whether or not he's still participating as a member, and so I need to reach out to him to get clarification on that. And so I'll do that, and I'll reach out. I haven't met the new I guess executive director of the CBVC, and so I'll do that later this week. And so my initial intention was to have a discussion about the 3 candidates, which we can still do, but per RCW, it won't be. It's not what we need. We need at least another person tied to a veteran service agency. So I'll have to go back to I'll just have to do some more outreach and try and gather someone. So we won't currently have an advisory board that is in line with the RCW, but that will be a priority of mine over the next week or 2. And my hope is to come back to you guys hopefully early in February and have at least another applicant that we can talk about. So anyway, like I said, the purpose of me coming today was just to share these three applicants, and again, I think that the three of them would do great on the advisory board. I've spoken personally with two of them. Needy in my office has spoken with the other one, and so we feel pretty good about these three. But like I said, I'll need to get more. So I just want to answer any questions you guys might have, and see if there's thoughts on the current applicants that we have.
Questions, commissioners?
Kyle, this is Commissioner Peck. Thanks for bringing up the statutory requirement on the association with local veterans groups. Help me recall, because off the top of my head I meant to look it up and I forgot. When we constructed our board, I don't recall us having any requirement in there for what percentage of the board had to be from Franklin County as opposed to simply being in the bi-county area. And if I recall right, going back a couple of years, the premise was that we're very mobile and our veterans move back and forth across the bridges all the time, and so that's not a concern for us, but that any funds that come out of each county would have to be isolated to those counties. Can you speak to any of that?
What you stated was correct. I again reviewed the RCW this morning, and I'll certainly do a deeper dive. But and you know, again, I recognize you're bringing that up because one of the residents is one of the applicants is a Ken Oak resident. But again, like you know, the Franklin County residents receive, you know, they go to Benton County service organizations and vice versa, and so, but I couldn't find anything. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay, well, to be clear, I didn't, and I hope it wasn't taken as a suggestion that just because one of them is from Kennewick that that's a problem. I don't have an issue with that, but I just want to make sure that our own guidelines that we put in place allowed for that. I believe they do. I just want verification of that. So
they do. Yeah, they do. There's nothing in our policy, and again, I reviewed the RCW this morning and couldn't find anything. All you know, it was more of a skim though. I'll go back through and do a deeper dive on it. But I haven't found anything that indicates that that it's a requirement that the person lives in the county that they are advising. They just have to be. The only requirement, quite frankly, that I found was that no fewer than half of the participants on an advisory board have to be connected with the Veteran Service Organization, nationally recognized Veteran Service Organization.
Okay. And the only other thing I'd add is that I was pleased to see Scott Smiley, or perhaps more appropriately, I should say Major Retired Smiley, on the list of candidates. We couldn't do any better, in my opinion, to have somebody like him on the committee. So I think that's great.
Yeah, thanks. He and I spoke specifically, and he's you know, he's got some great ideas to help, you know, get the word out and help with, you know, he's very passionate about the veteran community, and so I think it will be he'll be a good addition to the board.
Mr. Sullivan, this is Commissioner Didier. Maybe reach out to Scott, because he knows veterans around the area, and maybe we can fill that board. Can you inform me of the last board? Were they all residents of Franklin County?
I don't have it pulled up. I don't know if all of them were. I think most of them were, but there might have been one, I think, that was not. But I don't know that for sure. I don't, like I said, I don't have that information pulled up in front of me.
Well, I remember seeing the list, but I don't think they were all of Franklin County.
No, Commissioner Didier, Commissioner Peck, at least one of them was not. Perhaps two, but I think a majority were. And I'm not suggesting they have to be. We've already covered what the statute requires, but just wanted to put some light on the fact that these are tough positions to fill sometimes, and we have the opportunity, if we suddenly have a lot of additional Franklin County veterans who want to participate, the board can be larger. We're not constrained.
Okay, yeah, that would be great. Again, my hope, you know, and yeah, my hope is, you know, that obviously that would be ideal, is if, you know, we have tend to choose from, and if we've got some great applicants, then I might be coming back before you guys and saying, hey, maybe we could increase the allotment from. I think in the policy it states that the advisory board will be made up of no more than 5, but obviously that would be up to you all, the board of commissioners, to determine whether or not we wanted to add to that. So that may be a conversation for a future meeting.
Yeah, Kyle, I think my memory was no less than 5. So your memory is probably better than mine, but certainly it can be made larger if we have people who want to participate.
Oh, okay. Maybe you're correct. I'll have to go back and look at the policy.
Yeah, so Mr. Sullivan, please look at that policy, because if it says no more than 5, we could have a 3-member board to help get these funds to these veterans in a timely manner, correct?
Correct. The only problem, like I stated earlier, is I need to verify that Steve Leto is still connected with CBVC. There is a requirement within RCW that states that no fewer than half of the board members have to be tied to a nationally accredited veteran service organization. And so if Steve no longer had connections to the CBVC, then we wouldn't meet that statutory requirement. And so like I said, he may still be. I just found out about this morning, and so I need to give him a call. And he may have just stepped down as the executive director. I know when he took over, the intent wasn't, what he had expressed to me was, the intent wasn't that to be a permanent role. He was doing it on an interim basis until they could find somebody to fill the role permanently. And so that may have happened. I just haven't spoken with him. And hopefully he's still got ties to CBVC, and then this would not be an issue.
Okay. Commissioner Mullen, do you have any questions?
No, I do not. Other than, how are they letting people know that these positions are available?
There's been a number of, I know, quite frankly, Steve used to do a weekly podcast. I don't know if that's still going on. He talked about both the Veterans Relief Fund and the need for advisory board members. We've had it on Franklin County's website. It was on the Facebook pages of WorkSource, the CDC veteran site. I can't think of. There were a couple others I can't think off the top of my head, and so we tried to get the social media involved as much as we can, and then of course, Steve was great over at CBVC, because he had a lot of contact with local veterans. I believe Scott will be able to get the word out too. The community is that's a tight community, and so my hope is that kind of the word of mouth will help also. But we have had it on other websites and Facebook pages as well.
Yeah, and Kyle, Commissioner Peck, some of the committee members in the past have gone to their VFW organizations and other organizations that are veteran-centered and given presentations briefly on the committee and the opportunities to participate. Candidly, the majority of the people that are in the veteran community are candidates for support and assistance, much more so than participation on the committee. But it doesn't mean that we shouldn't continue to reach out. And I agree that Mr. Smiley may have a great veteran network. I'm certainly hoping so, to help us attract some additional members.
Right.
Okay, Mr. Sullivan, well, thank you very much for the presentation, and reach out to Scott and see if we can get some more vets.
I will, and when that happens, I'll certainly come back before you all and make sure you have copies of the new applicants, and we'll have another discussion at that time.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, gentlemen.
All right, with that, Keith, we are down to public comment. Do we have any phone calls or emails?
I do have one email comment, and then I do have, it looks like, about 4 callers on the line. So you may want to take those callers first.
Okay, go ahead.
Good morning, Ms. Hatch.
Yes.
You have the floor.
Okay. So I am calling. I know Rocky isn't aware of this because he wasn't a commissioner then, but at the end of April, I had sent an email to the then 3 commissioners, and I forewarned that after 1.5 months of lockdown, this virus isn't gone. It never will be. These shutdowns will never be done. Especially when you look at the last election and the majorities we have for the Democrats in both houses, the state Supreme Court, as well as the executive. And I am just hoping, I don't know if you all had a chance to look at the Serrano ordinance for the counties and cities to help protect these businesses. But I want to point out that when Chaz was formed, Inslee didn't go in on the basis that it was the mayor's city, and he did not want to overstep her authority. And if that can happen, certainly we can look at creating some ordinances. I know that there have been some suits filed. I don't know where they're at, of people that were in the Capitol area and against the governor for not coming in and protecting them, for the state police, even after people were reportedly raped and murdered. So I just feel like I really hope, and I'm really asking that our commissioners really look at that, because this will never end. And it's not just about county funds, it's about the people. It's about the people and the character of our community, which is the small business people. That's what makes the character of any community, and we are losing it. We are losing children to suicide. There were multiple attempts over the Christmas vacation and some that were successful. And so we need to ask ourselves, are we going to continue to support the governor's mandates, or are we going to support the Constitution? And I know no one wants to break the laws, but I can tell you, I have ancestors that were part of the Underground Railroad. And that went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court upheld slavery. And so sometimes in justice's cause, we do have to break laws and mandates that are unconstitutional in the ability to fight for our freedoms and for our Constitution. So I'm just really hoping that you look at that and that there's something we can do about that.
Thank you. Is this Manton?
Yes, it is.
You have the floor, sir.
Okay. Yes, my name's Matt Bailey. I'm calling in. I'm a 4th generation farmer out here in North Franklin County, and I guess I'm calling in to support the people in our local government that is trying to help our small businesses and restaurants get open, to try to get our state government, our governor, to kind of use more common sense rather than going with science. When the science starts trumping common sense, I think we're all going to be in trouble. Science is supposed to support common sense. And what I see in our community, I'm out here on the farm. Nothing's slowed me down at all in our little organization here. We're putting fertilizer on today out in the dryland wheat country. And when I go into town, it is depressing to see our small businesses shut down and not being able to function. Why do I have the right to continue to function just because I was picked in an industry that is needed? If they're going to pick certain organizations to shut down, they should shut us all down. We should all suffer. And it just doesn't seem right to me.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Good luck.
Thanks. Is this Terry?
Oh,
Hi, is this Terry?
yes, it is.
Hi, Terry. You are in the county commissioners meeting. You now have the floor.
Okay, I'm calling to listen. Is it not?
Oh. You called in on the public comment line. Did you have it? You're welcome to listen. Did you have a comment for the commissioners?
Well, no, I guess I just feel that we need to open back up. I don't think that the restaurant should be closed down like they are. You know, and this outside seating where they have it all enclosed is no different than the inside seating. I mean, it's just that the survival rate of this virus is, you know, it's not as bad as they make it out to be. And I think the county just needs to open up. We have too many people losing their businesses because of it. That's what I have to say.
Okay, thank you very much.
Welcome.
Good morning. Is this Kevin?
Yep,
Hi, Kevin. You are in the county commissioners meeting.
I'm listening to it. I'm next up, I think.
Yes, please go ahead with your comment.
Am I on right now or is she still talking?
There is a delay with her speaking, but you're on right now.
Okay, sounds good. Kevin Heinen, resident of Franklin County since 1970, PCO, Republican Party 83. Guys, you know, I'm kind of like with what Mr. Bailey said earlier, you know, there's common sense. We're watching all these families suffering of these businesses. You know, we haven't missed a lick out here. And like Matt, and we sit there and we watch all these suffering. You know, we see the businesses, but we don't see the families. We've got to stand up. We've got to do something. And like Ms. Hatch was talking about the Supreme Court, perfect example, you know, doesn't mean our governor's right. At some point, we got to make a decision for ourselves, for our people in our county. And that's all I have to say on that. The other thing is, I don't understand why the commissioners, I'd like to see commissioners, that's a big room. We can go to Walmart, we can go to Target, Costco, we can almost rub shoulders, but you guys can't sit in a conference room so that I can see all three of you guys. You can't let us come in one at a time and speak face to face. It don't make sense, guys. Someone needs to stand up. And that's all I got to say about that. But I think you commissioners need to start showing your faces inside and show support of what the rest of the people of our county need to be doing also, not being run and scared. And that's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Looks like I have a couple more callers. Good morning. Is this Shayla?
Yes, it is.
Hi, Shayla. You are in the commissioners meeting. You have the floor.
Thank you so much. Thank you, commissioners, for giving me this opportunity to speak. I kind of feel like I am just being repetitive from the last callers, but I think that's what our community needs right now is more and more people speaking up. Our community is begging for our commissioners' support. I am personally extremely excited to have Commissioner Mullen in. I have worked hand in hand with Commissioner Didier, numerous times. But our community needs you guys. You are our county commissioners. You are the commissioners of our county. You are not state commissioners. what the state mandates are regulating are unconstitutional, and you know it. We have small businesses that are dying from lockdown. They're not dying from COVID. Our community is dying from being shut down. People are taking out first and second mortgages on their homes, trying to make their business survive just for go food, and it's not just the food industry, but these big box stores are allowed to do whatever they want. And one of the ladies before was talking about breaking the law and not breaking the law. It's coming to the point where your community is going to be breaking the law because that's what they have to do to survive. I am asking you guys I think it's time. I agree. You should be in that room. We should be able to see you face to face, mask on, mask off, whatever. But you're our commissioners and you're supposed to be there for us. And I encourage you, I'm begging you to please, I think it's time for a public statement with a plan, not these public statements where, you're in support of us and things like that. We need a plan. There needs to be a plan. And I personally am a citizen that is more than willing to help come up with a plan. I know that Mr. Pete Serrano came up with a plan at the city council. That's one guy on our whole entire city council, and they all pretty much just poo-pooed his whole entire idea. It can't be one person. We have to join together. Our commissioners, our city council, our community, or there won't be a community. There won't be tax dollars paying for all of our upgrades in our city and our county. It won't be happening. Small businesses can't pay their taxes if they can't be open. So I encourage you guys. I've worked with Mr. Didier. He is very loud and proud, and I stand behind him. I'm extremely excited for Commissioner Mullen to be in, and I hope that we can really get a plan going. This is what our community needs right now. We need you guys to be there for us. You are our voice. So let's come up with a public statement with a plan, not we're here for the community. No, what's the plan to fix the community? What's the plan to help the community? Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
The taxes if they can't
Good morning. Is this Erica?
Yes, it is.
Erica, you have the floor.
Thank you. My name is Erica Toronto. I'm a 10-year resident of Franklin County. I'm a Franklin County PCO, and I have 3 quick comments. First of all, I'm calling in support of the county ordinance that Ms. Hatch referred to stand with the businesses, our local businesses, and protect them from the likes of L&I. My second comment is that I'd like to call for a full audit of the voting machines that are used in Franklin County. It's essential to holding a free and fair election that the voting machines are reliable and accurate. In my opinion, this probably should have already been done. However, it's better to be done late than never. So I'd like to call for a full audit of those voting machines. And thirdly, I too would like to see the commissioners meeting in person. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Good morning. Is this Mr. Baumann?
It is.
You have the floor.
Good morning, commissioners. Thank you for this opportunity. Also, congratulations to Mr. Peck and Mr. Mullen on their elections. It was a long election season, and congratulations to both of you. A couple of comments that I would have to make. I would like to see you guys sitting in the same room. There's no explanation, there's no medical reason that you guys can't meet in person and that we can't see you as our representatives in the same room representing us. I think that you need to be in the same room doing the job that you were elected to do. Next comment I have is there's an ordinance that was before Pasco City Council that I believe could be adjusted slightly, excuse me, and could be brought before the commissioners. And it's, I suppose you could say it's an open up ordinance. And I think that it's something that you commissioners should consider.
And I appreciated what I heard Mrs. Hatch say a minute ago about the governor did not go into Seattle and usurp the authority of the Seattle mayor when CHOP or Chaz was opened up and operated there. And so for us to do something as simply as saying a business can go about the business of doing business, I think we need to go about the business of doing the business that we do. Another comment is, it's completely and absolutely unacceptable for the governor or the government in any form or fashion to decide who is essential. We are free Americans and we get to decide what we are doing is essential, as long as we fall inside the law. And when, at one point in this country, slavery was lawful. And in cases like that and in cases like this, I believe that we need to stand up and we need to take a stand. Last and final comment is on our voting in Franklin County. I had the opportunity to go through our voting with our auditor very carefully, and I really appreciated the way Mr. Beaton is running our voting in Franklin County. And I've had several people ask me if I thought the election was fair, and I unequivocally can say yes, absolutely, I think it was fair. The exception to that is we don't know what the electronic voting machine does and how it does it, and I think that we need to audit that machine. I think it's a fairly simple process, not very time consuming and definitely not costly to audit the voting machine that we have in Franklin County that counts the ballots electronically, and I think that we should audit that machine. So thank you for your time, and you guys have a great day.
Thank you. Good morning. Is this Paula?
Yes, this is Paula Curtright,
Yes.
a Franklin County resident.
Please go ahead. You have the floor.
Okay, thank you. First off, I want to say that I want to support a county ordinance to reopen business in Franklin County, in the county as well as in the city. We need to find a plan that will work. There's no reason, I agree. If you can go to Walmart and Costco and shop, you should be able to open a restaurant. The other thing is, I would like to see the commissioners in the commissioner's room. Churches are open. They can be social distanced, wearing a mask, and it's fine. So the commissioners meeting should be open to the public, and we should be able to see you in the room. And that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Good morning. Is this Brant?
Yeah, this is Brant.
Brant, please go ahead. You have the floor.
Oh, okay. Yeah, first thing, I can't listen in the meetings. I really don't know what's going on, but I was just calling if you guys can open this meeting up to a public forum. Move it to the track or something big if we all got to stay 6 feet away. But, this COVID's going to be going away after Biden got elected. Democrats are controlling everything. But that's what I was just calling. Try to get this open where people can come to the meetings and then we know what's going on. And then number two, if the county commissioners can open up, that'd mean a lot for these small businesses that Inslee's got tied down. I don't look forward to these restaurants and that opening up till maybe March, be able to serve inside. It could be something else, but our leadership, if you guys can stand up and, pass that one initiative or ordinance, that'd be great. Just something to show to the, the Hispanics and, small family-owned restaurant owners, bars, that we can, just mean a lot that our politicians are behind us. That's about all I got to say.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good morning, Mr. Simmons.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes, this is me.
Hi, Steve. You have the floor.
Okay, excuse me just a moment. Sure thing. Okay. Sorry, I just had to get into a space where I can talk real quick. I'm at work. I apologize. So can you hear me?
You're getting a lot of feedback.
Hold on just a second. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Please go ahead.
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay, my name is Steve Simmons. I'm a precinct committee officer from precinct 48, and I just wanted to make a couple comments real quick here. First, I really appreciated Mrs. Hatt's comments. I've talked to a friend of mine, Tim Hyman. We know him pretty well as an anti-tax activist, and he talked about civil disobedience. And sometimes I want to say that I think that is sometimes necessary when it comes, when there's no other recourse for your grievances to be redressed. And I'm not saying that we need to do anything to incite violence or anything like that. I don't think that type of method is ever appropriate, but I'm just saying civil disobedience, whatever those methods may be, whether we need to declare that we're going to open businesses or whatever we need to. I think that is something I would encourage the commissioners to do or to look at. Mainly because I'm as a COVID, as a COVID survivor, I guess you could say. I don't understand the nature of this public emergency anymore, or health crisis, as it is so called by our governor and by our legislature. I look at what the emergency powers of the government are, and especially the governor's emergency powers, and he can enact certain things and proclamations in order to protect, and I don't have it in front of me, I'm sorry, but the life, liberty and property. And I wonder sometimes if we're creating more harm in other emergencies in other areas in the name of trying to prevent one emergency or prevent an emergency, a so-called emergency in another area, like, for instance, life, but we're damaging property and liberty at the same time. This isn't an emergency that damages infrastructure or other things like that. It's a public health emergency, and I think that the methods maybe that we're doing now are having other damaging and harmful effects. I did want to put my support behind the ordinance that was put by Councilman Serrano and City of Pasco to protect our business. So I did want to put support behind that, and if we can adopt that and alter it or change it in some way, or I would appreciate to see that. Also, a voting machine audit. I really do think that's a wonderful idea. If we can show the people of our county, especially who have big questions that have gone unanswered this whole election, it seems to me like none of the questions that the public had, and there was a high percentage of public, at least 39% of the public, 75% of Republicans, and at least 17% of Democrats, 31% of independents, just have questions about this election. So anything they can show or restore faith that our elections, especially in our county, are good, that would be wonderful. And I just want to congratulate Peck, Commissioner Peck, and all the newly elected commissioners. I appreciate what you guys do. I appreciate the hard work you guys put in for our county and supporting us. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good morning. Is this Shayla?
Yes, it is.
Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you again, Commissioners, for the opportunity to speak. I, again, am very for reiterating and repetitiveness. So I agree with the patrons that have called in about the audit of our voting machines. And I wanted to state that I worked hand in hand with Commissioner Didier. He's the only commissioner that stood up and did not certify the votes. It was very apparent that there is issues with voting this year in a lot of elections. And I agree with Mr. Simmons that reassure your county. that our voting system was real and that it was okay. An audit, if there's nothing to worry about, an audit shouldn't be no problem. I also wanted to encourage our commissioners. Benton County this morning just presented a proclamation by their new commissioner, from Commissioner Will McKay, put forth a proclamation that hopefully will pass and be submitted to Governor Inslee. Again, Benton County and Franklin County should be working hand in hand together. We're essentially the same county split by a river. So their community, our community, we're the same community. And I encourage you to get with Commissioner McKay, go over the proclamation and submit it from Franklin County as well. We're all the same community. And the last thing that I would like to state, I know a lot of people are talking about having the commissioners visible in our meetings, possibly having people come in one at a time. There's plenty of room for social distancing. But I also would like to ask from the public, I'm sure that I can probably request hours, but how many hours do our commissioners spend in office? If you're in your office by yourself, there's absolutely no 6 feet distancing from anybody if you're in there by yourself. So what commissioners have been in office since March working to help our community? I'm not trying to be rude, but that's your job. You're there for us, and I know that Mr. Didier has been in office. I understand that Commissioner Mullen is just new. I don't know his office hours, but the last that I was aware of, Commissioner Peck, you have not been in office. What's the reasoning for that? You have plenty of social distancing room. You are a commissioner. You work for us. You should be in your office working. So I appreciate the time and the opportunity again. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Commissioner Didier, that was my last phone call, but I do have one written comment that the author asked to read in the record.
Please go ahead.
Okay, it says, thank you for your service to our county and for supporting free speech by reading letters from me at the meetings from time to time. I write on 2 issues today, both of the utmost importance. First, the Dominion voting machine used in our county must be audited for accuracy and replaced if it fails the test. In reality, it should be replaced immediately. We may never have a free or fair election in our county again, and Dominion has shown they have a big role to play in that problem. Their company should be nowhere near our county. Go back to counting votes by hand if needed. Second, the proposal submitted by Commissioner Didier last week to formally open Franklin County has my full support as a lifelong resident of Franklin County. To continue to cower in fear of the governor by following his unconstitutional mandates is a fool's errand. Please, people cannot survive without jobs. Even those with jobs now don't retain them when people have no money to spend. Even a relatively safe job like mine, public school teacher, is not safe when families move away and the cost of living skyrockets due to inflation. People without jobs lose hope, which generates poverty, drugs, theft, suicide, and murder. History reflects this fact. Big cities in our region reflect this fact. Pasco reflects this fact. This entire destruction of our economy and culture is due to a virus that has a 99.9% survival rate. No amount of federal or state government handouts are worth the destruction of our liberties. You have the power to do your duty as commissioners, which is to protect and uphold the rights of all citizens as enumerated in the Constitution and given by God Almighty. Thank you for your time, Justin Carey, Pasco.
All right, Keith, thank you very much. I am going to take all this into consideration, and we are not going to have an executive session today, but I would like to bring this up and other business under old business at the end of the meeting. So with that, if we could, we are to office business and the vouchers.
I'd like to make a motion to move for approval of fund expenditures in a total amount of $357,146.95. As presented, and note that there has been reviewed and signed by 2 representatives of the auditor's office and the county administrator.
Second. And a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. I'd like to make a motion to approve for approval of salary clearing payroll and emergency management payroll in the amount of $989,698.78 as presented, and note that has been reviewed and signed by 2 representatives of the auditor's office.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That moves us down to the consent agenda.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda 1 through 6.
Second. With discussion.
Please discuss the item that you would like, Commissioner Peck.
I just want to note that item 6, if I recall from several years ago, that Brian Cochran is a former Air Force officer that served on an AWACS crew, and since we've had discussions today about veterans, just wanted to acknowledge him for his service. Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Yes, on 6, I would also like to thank Brian for his past service on the mosquito board, and I look forward to seeing him continue that work on that project.
And I too would like to thank Brian for his service to our country. So with that being said, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Okay, consent pass. Keith, we're down to administration office business. Do you have anything for us?
I do have a couple of matters, Commissioner. First of all, last week when we approved the board positions and assignments for 2021, we approved, you approved Commissioner Mullen to serve on the Emergency Management Board for Franklin County. During the week, Sean Davis notified us that we actually have 2 positions on that board. And so I'm asking for the board's decision today to name a second person to serve with Commissioner Mullen on the Emergency Management Board.
I will volunteer myself to serve with Commissioner Mullen.
I was going to volunteer, and I'm happy to serve, but I'm equally happy to defer to Commissioner Didier as well. Either way is fine with me.
Sounds like there's consensus then from the board to have Commissioner Didier. Maybe Commissioner Mullen, do you need to weigh in on that?
I approve.
Is that what we're looking for, Keith? Is just a consent, or do we need a motion?
I don't see why we would need a motion and a vote. If there's no objection, then I think that's adequate.
Okay.
And in the event that either of you are not available, I will be listed as the alternate because the Emergency Management Board is engaged when we do have an incident. We want to make sure that a representative of the county is always available. In nearly every circumstance, that will be the 2 of you. But if for some reason the emergency occurs at a time when one of you is unavailable, then I will represent the county as an alternate. That was the only thing I had on that one. Then, as you will recall, our elected assessor, Pete McInduffer, proffered his resignation effective the end of the month. There is a process specified in state statute for replacing him. It requires the nomination of 3 people to be provided by the same party that Mr. McInduffer was representing, which in this case is the Franklin County Republican Party. I'm just asking for the board's direction or permission for me to reach out to the Franklin County Republican Party to ask them to submit those 3 names quickly. And there is a time frame. We have plenty of time, but there is a time frame to name his replacement that would serve the remainder of his term. So with the board's permission, I will send a letter to the party asking them to initiate that process.
Commissioners?
No objection, Commissioner Peck, for sending a letter to the party asking them to bring forward 3 nominees consistent with the appropriate statutes and bylaws.
Commissioner Mullen?
Yes, I agree with, Commissioner Peck that should be sent out.
Okay, Keith, you got a unanimous consent there, so.
Very good. The other, we did have an executive session scheduled on the agenda today. That was at my request to discuss some contract negotiations. It would require the sheriff's attendance, and he had a prior commitment that would have made him unavailable to attend this morning. So I'd request that we move that to next week. It's a timely issue, but it's not one that requires action today, or we've got time to move that to next week. So just ask your permission to move that agenda item to the following meeting. Then the last item, I think Commissioner Didier, you expressed some interest in discussing some of the things that were brought up in our public comment period today. We did receive some instruction from the prosecuting attorney's office regarding the legality of holding open public meetings and the legality of declaring through ordinance both criminal and statutory issues that are probably beyond the scope of the authority of the county. So if you would like to discuss those, I'm happy to share with you what we've learned.
Yes. With that, I will need a second on this for discussion, but I move that Franklin County seek injunction relief from the governor's proclamation.
Commissioner Didier, this is Commissioner Peck. I think I would need a little more detail on what you mean by injunctive relief specifically before I would be able to consider a second.
I am asking that our prosecuting attorney present this before a judge so we get a second opinion.
And so that necessitates my asking, present what? Or are you talking about the ordinance that was emailed to us?
No, we're talking about
last week.
No, I am talking about the meetings and us being present in the meeting room. Because what we have here is we have an opinion by our prosecuting attorney, our legal opinion, and I'm looking for a second so that we may be able to present this before a judge and get a second opinion.
Thank you for clarifying.
And if I may, this is Jen Johnson. I think I made it clear in our thing that we just need to put guidelines in place for opening up the meetings. The prohibition against the public meetings expires on the 19th. I think at this point, we need to have a plan in place on how we're going to reopen. Because we do need to follow the masks and the social distancing. And I believe that allowed for limited number of seating for the public. So I think we just need to use our time now to put a plan in place on how we're going to accommodate public that wants to come in versus staff members that want to come in, etc.
There is a motion on the floor. If there is not a second, it will die.
I'll second the motion for further discussion.
Okay, thank you. So, in the legal analysis, Jen, you presented that, and I will read verbatim, in addition to reviewing all documents.
I'm sorry, if I could stop you right there. That is legal advice, so it would need, all three of you would need to agree that you're going to make it public.
All three, or the consent of 2 commissioners?
All three, because all three of you enjoy that legal privilege.
And we represent the people of the county, that they should also get to enjoy this legal privilege. Correct?
I No, the legal advice is for the people I sent it to, and those people need to waive that legal.
Okay, then I won't read it verbatim, and I will just comment on the fact that we have a governor that gave his interpretation of the documents, and an AG that gave a different opinion of the documents. And if they can't agree on the documents, how are we supposed to abide by rules that they can't even agree on?
That is what I'm saying. The time frame, the latest time frame runs out right now on the 19th. So we need to put a plan in place on how we're going to open it and follow the guidelines of social distancing and masking. So you guys need to decide if you're going to, one, we need to probably figure out how many seats we can accommodate in that room. But we need to make a rule because from my recollection, I think sat maybe 6 or 7 people. Are we going to leave those seats open for the public, or, are we going to allow the staff to come in? Because I think we allow the staff to come in, there will not be seats for the public, and I hate to have someone drive 45 minutes to come to the meeting and then not have a seat. So this is, I think, opportunity to put a plan in place so we can open up the meeting.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that, because I think we should do both. I think we should have the social distancing, and we should have the mask in place. And if we have more people show up than chairs in the chamber, then we either have them wait out in the foyer for their turn to come in for public comment, or we move the meeting to the HAPO Center, where we have lots of room that is not being utilized at this time. There is lots of avenues here to open this up. At the very least, we should have our meetings on WebEx so that we're all being visible to the people we are representing.
And I agree with you. It looks like the laws at this time allow us for us to open up, but I just want a plan in place so everybody knows what to expect. That's the goal. So that's what I would recommend you guys do at this meeting now, is make a plan in place if we're going to move to the HAPO Center, or how we're going to do it, so that way the public that wants to come and the staff members that want to come can all be accommodated. I don't want any surprises and hurt feelings because there isn't room in the meeting, and people are asked to leave to accommodate others, etc. So I think it's very important that we have a firm plan in place, so that way everything runs smoothly. People know to expect to have to wear masks and socially distance, etc.
Okay. Commissioners, do you have any comments, or?
This is Commissioner Peck. This is under a motion and a second for discussion of challenging before a court the governor's present restrictions, and I do not support that motion in principle, because we're 7 days away from being relieved of those constraints, and I think our time and energy and money is better spent preparing a plan. So I think we need to deal with that motion first. So with that, I'd call the question, which is a motion to end discussion so that we can vote and put that to rest before we get into discussing a plan.
In this discussion, it sounds like we are discussing the plan, and I think that we should really concentrate on the fact that...
Chairman, when somebody calls the question, there's no further discussion permitted. You go to a vote on whether or not we end discussion.
Well, then I guess we're going to take a vote here. All in favor of the injunction relief of the governor's proclamation, say aye.
Mr. Chairman, point of order. That's incorrect. It is a vote on whether or not we end discussion on the question of an injunction. And if the vote is in favor of ending discussion, then we move on to discussing a plan for how we're going to meet. If it goes the other way, then we need to continue discussing.
Okay, I've got it. There's a motion to end discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. End discussion on the injunction only. Okay, now, Mr. Chairman, if I may, it's time for us to vote on whether or not we're going to take this.
We did not get a second vote on that. There was a question. The question was... No, you did not hear aye. He says, is this on the injunction only? This is to end discussion, Mr. Mullen. This is not to vote down the injunction. This is to end discussion. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, there's been a move to end discussion. Now we will vote on the motion. All in favor of the motion?
Chairman, please repeat the motion so that everybody knows what they're voting on.
I move that Franklin County seek injunction relief from the governor's proclamation.
Okay, thank you.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay.
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 Okay, the motion
Thank you,
fails.
Mr. Chairman, now we can talk about a plan for how we're going to open up next week.
Excuse me, Commissioner Peck, you're out of order. You have to ask for acknowledgement from the chair to be recognized.
Actually not correct, but we can move on.
So discussion about opening our county. I encourage and ask everybody to participate here. Mr. Mullen, do you have any thoughts?
I think that we should open up. I mean, nothing would be better. I would much rather meet in person and be able to have the community come in and speak with us, but I do believe we need a plan, and our plan needs to be legal. We cannot do anything that is going to be considered illegal, and I think we need to follow the advice of our legal team to make that plan.
Any other thoughts?
This is Commissioner Peck. My only objection in the entire duration of COVID to us opening up to public meetings was that it had to be legal. I absolutely am in favor of opening the meetings publicly, so long as it can be done lawfully and safely. And I think in terms of a plan, meeting in our boardroom with appropriate distancing and masks, and as much seating as we can accommodate in the commissioner's boardroom, with overflow seating in the rotunda with a monitor so people in the rotunda can see what's going on, and then people from the rotunda can come in as others come out to give their comments. I think that's appropriate. As much as I like the idea of relocating to the Hapo Center where everyone can participate contemporaneously all at the same time, there are a number of issues and challenges, additional challenges for staff to try and orchestrate a meeting from there. We've already had enough challenges with our electronic meeting systems that moving the meeting at this time seems problematic. So I'd support doing it in the chambers as I've just described, and looking forward to doing it as soon as we can lawfully do so.
Well, obviously that we have other entities within our local area here, and I'm speaking of the Pasco Chamber of Commerce, or the Pasco City Council, had a meeting last night. The chairman was in the meeting room without a mask on. So we obviously have a difference of legal opinion within our own area here as far as to what is legality of this Open Meetings Act. That's why I called into question and was asking for a injunctive relief of the ruling by, or not ruling, but the finding of our legal team. Because I question whether or not we are getting counsel. That's why I was asking for a judge review. I'm all favor of going right up to the chamber, social distancing, and having the people wear masks, and opening our meetings up to the community.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, this is Keith. I want to add some commentary if that's okay with you.
Absolutely, go ahead.
We have the capability from a technology standpoint of doing what's requested, of opening up the commissioner's chamber and social distancing amongst the three commissioners. The only challenge that I foresee with allowing the rotunda to be used as the overflow place is that is still a public location with other offices in the courthouse, members of the public coming to transact business. So we would still have to limit the size of that gathering if there were, any large number of people from the public or staff that desired to attend the meeting. I think we could control this adequately from a staff standpoint by encouraging them to tune in through their office technologies, but there's no way to fairly regulate how many members of the public would be allowed into the building to participate in the meeting. That would be the primary advantage of moving to the HAPO Center is you would have essentially unlimited capacity for the public to attend. We could accommodate that, but as Commissioner Peck pointed out, that creates some additional challenges as well. So I just wanted to raise that one concern about the use of the rotunda for overflow. If it's a small group of people, I think we could accommodate that. If it's a large group of people, we probably cannot.
I agree, but I think we also need to keep the telephonic going because there will be people that will not want to attend in person, and I think we still keep that going as well. I think the overflow, a lot of the people that want to attend sound like they're farmers. They don't mind standing outside where social distancing will be just fine. We could use the outdoor gated grass area for people to wait for their turn too. It is of the utmost importance that we open these meetings up for public to come and attend.
Yeah, on that basis, if you're allowing them in a few at a time, then we could accommodate that.
Okay, do I have a motion?
So this is Commissioner Peck. I have some additional discussion. I think it might be useful for us to ask our legal counsel if they would be willing to outline the requirements for the plan that we've just described, or perhaps the county administrator can do it and we can have our legal counsel review it for compliance. I've not heard anything discussed that I think would compromise it or that would be unlawful. I think everything we've described is doable. I do want to note that the fact that the mayor of the city of Pasco sits in a room some 25, 30 feet from, I believe, the only other person in the room and does so without a mask doesn't preclude the requirement for masks. And my expectation is that when we, the commissioners and the public, are in the meeting room, if we're expecting the public to wear masks, then the commissioners and staff need to do so as well.
Further discussion?
This is Commissioner Mullen. I would just like to add that I believe we're all in, we all have the same thought as far as we all want to open up and we all want to meet in the chambers and have the public come in. But we do have to do it legally and we do have to have a plan. And therefore, I think that we seek our legal counsel to come forward with that plan so that we make sure that none of us are violating any of the orders that have been put out by the governor that would actually, by not following those, would put us in jeopardy of being kicked out of office and therefore not being able to accomplish the goals that we have set forth before us. If we're going to do our jobs, we need to be able to be in office, and we need to make sure that we do this legally. I think our efforts should be more put forward towards trying to come up with a plan to how we can get the county opened back up as important as the meetings are, and that we do need to hear from our constituents and be in front and be available to them. We need to focus on trying to get our county opened up, and I think that is of the utmost importance. Thank you.
I agree, Rocky, but we're taking baby steps right now. We're just trying to get our meeting opened up to then let the public engage us on the county. We heard from a lot of constituents today on the phone. The resounding voice was open our county up. According to our prosecutorial discretion, we don't have that authority unless we get another opinion from a judge. And this is what I made the motion for. This is what I'm trying to do.
Mr. Chairman, point of order. This is discussion about our plan, not revisiting your desire for an injunctive relief. I would seek board consensus at this time that we ask our county administrator and our legal counsel to work together to prepare a written plan that is lawful and effective and meets the terms that the commissioners have just described for us opening our meetings.
Point of order well taken. Just explaining the process here that has been unveiled before a brand new commissioner. So with that,
I'm still seeking that consensus.
Consensus, I would like a motion.
Well, that's all well and good, but a request from the sitting board member.
Excuse me, Commissioner Peck, you haven't been asked to be recognized by the chairman yet.
Commissioner Didier, please revisit Robert's rules.
I got them right here. Commissioner Peck, I ask you to please acknowledge to be recognized.
Go ahead, Mr. Didier. You do as you please.
Is there any motion on the floor? Then I move to ask our administrator and our prosecuting attorney to draw up a plan for us to revisit the chamber for our meetings.
Second with discussion.
Discussion, please go ahead.
Moments ago, I asked for board consensus. I outlined the terms of that consensus. If you want to put it in the form of a motion, that's perfectly fine with me, so long as it's understood that the motion supports the consensus that was requested.
Further discussion? There's been a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Very good. We will begin that document immediately.
Okay, thank you. Secondly, I want to talk about the voting machines. Please enlighten us as to how we can check the Dominion voting machine in Franklin County to make sure that it is accurate and correct, and if this is possible, because I would like to see this happen just to check to make sure that everything is on the up and up for Franklin County. We can assure the voters that their votes are not being changed or mishandled in any way.
Commissioner Didier, are you asking me that question? Just
asking you or our legal team if this is a possibility. I'm sure
I would suggest that the county auditor be brought into that conversation. They oversee those election machines. It's my understanding that those machines have been checked and verified, but if there is a independent audit of someone independent of the auditor's office that needs to perform that, that would require some kind of a contractual agreement with the appropriate auditor, and I'm not sure who that is, whether it's the Secretary of State or the state auditor's office or some independent technology company that could review that. But that's certainly the within the choice of the board to make if they want to pursue it to that extent.
Okay, so, Mr. Beaton, are you, on the phone? Would you like to?
Yes, commissioners, I'm here. I'm listening. And yes, I did hear the concerns when they called in, and I've heard concerns from voters independently, raising questions about the machines. It is true that as part of the process, we do conduct an L&A before it starts, and then there was there was an audit that was driven by the canvassing board manual that was completed. What I would say is that I don't think you have to go outside to do this. But this voting machine, this system, is owned by the county and run by the county. I think the canvassing board should get together and try to assess exactly what they think they're worried about. We can explain what's already been done, and then we need to try to figure out, an acceptable manner to basically, do an additional audit. From an auditing standpoint and the canvassing board standpoint, we need our people to have confidence in the election system. So I don't think, we just have to find out how we want to do it and then just do it, and, invite, as a canvassing board, make sure we include anyone, Republican or Democrat, that wants to be part of it, and develop some kind of a process and run it, and then share the results.
It's my understanding, Mr. Beaton, that you previously audited the results by comparing paper copies to the counts provided to the machine, and I seem to recall you telling the board that you completed that review and had no concerns about the accuracy of the vote count. If that's the case, I don't know that I see the need to do additional audits. I'm not especially opposed to doing it if the other commissioners want to, but I trust that our auditor, if in fact we've got a hard copy of paper ballots that match up with the count, that to me seems a pretty good audit.
Commissioner Peck, I would agree that the process that's been done was it was well designed and was followed and produced the results it did. I think as the elected representative, that's why I said I think we first need to understand specifically what the voters' concerns are. In my mind, it's their machine. Then we explain to them, because some of them may not know, the process that's already taken place. And then at the end of that, it's my feeling that if there is still concerns, I think my job is to maintain and continue to build confidence in the system. So if that means developing something, whatever it is, and we'll find some way to design something that answers those questions, I think it's a reasonable response to people's concerns and confidence in the system.
Mr. Beaton, in Ware County, Georgia, they did a simple test on their machine. They filled out 20 ballots for Trump, 20 ballots for Biden. They ran them through the machine, and every time they ran them through, it came back 113% for Biden and 87% for Trump. This would be a simple test. Do you think this is something we could do with the machine?
I think if we convene the canvassing board, and that's where I'm at, is I think the canvassing board, which represents the process, yes, there's stuff that we can design and we can see what's possible and work with we're the only ones in the state that have this. So I took calls from all over the place, and it's not until the people of this county, shared concerns about it. And again, the only thing that I would say is I think the people that are requesting it should understand what's already there. And to answer your question, I believe there's a number of things that we could do. And again, I think we just need to design that and do it.
Thank you. I also think that another way of testing it would be the sex education bill that passed. I would like to see a test on that also. I am now currently on the canvassing board, being the chairman, correct?
Yeah, it's comprised of the chairman of the board, the auditor, and the prosecutor Sant.
Then I think that we need to get together and have a meeting and devise a plan.
Okay, it's just a matter of scheduling. If that's what you want to do, then we just need to set a time and advertise a meeting, and then
go from there.
Okay, thank you. Next is the ordinance that I put forth.
Mr. Chairman, I don't believe you received a consensus or a vote from the board to move forward with that plan. I think you should request it.
The way I understand it, the canvassing board will meet and determine a test. Do we need a vote on that?
I just think consensus from the board would be appropriate because there are some constraints that were placed on it, and it needs to be clear what that is. I don't support people selecting particular votes and issues and running those. I don't have a problem with testing the accuracy of the system, but this should not be used to pursue counts on particular initiatives, agenda items, etc. But if the planning commission wants to get together and, or the prosecutor and the auditor and chairman want to get together as the canvassing board and properly convene it and verify the accuracy of the system, I'm okay with that. And I think it's important for all three commissioners to be on board with what it is we're going to do.
Is there a consensus with the commissioners for this to be enabled?
This is Commissioner Mullen. I do believe that we should have the canvassing board get together with the auditor and, you know, run sample ballots through and determine, you know, if we are 100% accurate on our counts.
Okay, we have.
I agree.
We have a consensus. Next, Keith, is the ordinance. I didn't see that on the agenda. I asked for that to be, that would be presented before the Pasco City Council. It's the ordinance that Pete Serrano has put together, but we don't have it here for discussion.
Yeah, the prosecutor's office was still working on the legal opinion. They were able to complete that early this morning. I wasn't aware that they were going to have it completed for today's meeting, so that's why it's not being discussed, or why it's not on the agenda.
Okay, so I would like that to be on the agenda for next week. If we could please get that on the agenda for next week. And is the agenda put together by the chairman of the board and the administrator?
It's typically put together by the clerk of the board with input from all of the commissioners and myself.
Okay. All righty. Thank you. So I just want to make Commissioner Mullen aware of the fact if he wants anything on the agenda that he present it to the clerk of the board, and hopefully that it'll find its way to the agenda. Now the last, go ahead.
I'm sorry, real quick,
Jim.
on the agenda, ordinances are required to have a public hearing, and we are required to give 10 days notice on that. So at this point, I think you can put the ordinance on for a discussion amongst yourselves, but we still do need to have that public hearing before it can be adopted.
Thank you very much, Jen. That's, well, so that'd be 2 weeks before we can have a public hearing on it.
Correct.
Okay, well, we can discuss it next week. Last is old business from last week. There was, travel was brought up and discussed, and there was an RCW that was mentioned. When I looked it up, this is an RCW that has mileage rates established by the Director of Finance Management pursuant to the section of any sequent changes, therefore, shall be reported to the House Ways and Means Committee. What I found out in this RCW is that these are for state employees and not county. I sent an email to everyone on this, and I think we need to readdress this because it influenced the vote.
Ms. Johnson, this is Commissioner Peck. Would you address the question of whether or not county employees are state employees and whether that statute differentiates?
My understanding is that county employees are treated the same. That they are, in fact, state employees.
Well, There is another RCW, and it specifically talks about commissions, which we are. And so I'm curious as to this travel voucher that was discussed last week, and I'd like to bring it up for further discussion.
What travel voucher are we referring to?
It was items 8 and 9. It was the prosecuting attorney's travel and the commissioner's travel reimbursement.
So those are reimbursement policies, not a travel voucher. Thank you for clarifying.
Yes.
I might just suggest that reimbursement policies for county officials or county employees is at the discretion of the county commissioners. There are certain statutory provisions that have to be followed, but the individual policies that were presented last week are county policies that were designed to be in conformity with the state law.
Okay, because I asked 5 questions after the meeting, after I looked up the RCW. That RCW appears to be a state level law. How does it apply to our situation? Number 2, the county pays all the costs. Why would this RCW apply? Does it only apply to the PA? Do we have legal responsibility, all elected officials? If the PA, if it does apply to the PA alone, are we required to use the method mentioned in the law? The Director of Finance Management develops it and delivers to the House Ways and Means Committee. Where do we come in? And the 5th one, I know you are the president of WAPA. Do all elected PAs in the state get reimbursed? If so, are they the same? Why or why not?
My recollection is that those questions were directed to the prosecuting attorney for answers. Have we received those replies? If not, discussion at this point may be premature.
I'm waiting for a reply. I sent it right after the meeting. So Jennifer, if you could maybe look into that and get us a reply on that for the next meeting, please.
And Commissioner Didier, I know Mr. Stant is working on that. He was sending out emails to the elected officials per your inquiry there.
Okay, so we'll look for an answer next week. With that, is there any other business?
Commissioner, I do have an additional caller that's on hold.
Okay.
Good morning.
Hello?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yes, I just wanted to add some comments. Again, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I've been listening to the meeting online, and I am going to try and hold back my frustration, but discussing opening up the meetings to not only to our commissioners to be in person, but as well for our public to be in person. First of all, I think that Commissioner Didier's request for moving it to the Hapo Center is a great idea. There is plenty of space. That building is not being used for anything yet. It's our community building. So why not open it up to there? There's plenty. You can put the little 6 feet circles on the floor and place a chair there, or have people stand 6 foot apart, whatever. I am frustrated with Commissioner Peck, who made a point that said there's a lot of challenges in that. His word, challenges, in moving it to the Hapo Center. I would like to discuss challenges with you. Let's look at our community and the challenges that we're going through right now. Let's look at restaurants alone that are going through challenges where they're having to spend money to build an outdoor tent, which is essentially just like their indoor restaurant, outside. Let's think of these challenges that the businesses are going through. Why can't our commissioners go through some challenges? You work for us, and you should be challenged right now. I'm challenging you to come up with a plan to open up. Commissioner Didier came up with a plan. Let's move it to the HAPO Center. Plenty of space for social distancing. Everyone wear a mask. And then Commissioner Peck comes back and says, well, I'm worried about the challenges. You also brought up legality to it. If I'm understanding right, the legal team is on these meetings as well, and that legal team suggested coming up with a plan, because as of next week, the original plan that's in order will be expired. So therefore, we should have a new plan, which sounds good to me to move to the HAPO Center. That way, everybody in the community, you can't just shuffle people in one at a time, or if you're going to do that, you're going to be there all day. And from what I understand, Commissioner Peck, you don't like working all day. So therefore, I think this plan of moving to the HAPO Center is great. Let your community be heard. Let your people be heard. You work for us. So the challenges, I don't care if you're challenged. You should be challenged. That's your job, is to be challenged. You should be challenging yourself every day. So with that being said, I also would like to thank Mr. Beaton. I appreciate the fact that you are wanting to ease the mind of your county voters. Even if the tests have already been done and we're the only people with the dominion in the state, I appreciate you standing up for us and stating that you are worried about the concerns of the community. Even though tests have been done, you feel comfortable with the test, the community does not. And I do appreciate the fact that you want to hear the concerns of the people and make sure that everybody is okay with how the voting system is going. So thank you very much, Mr. Beaton, for standing up for your community and their concerns. Hopefully some of the commissioners can take heed in that. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Is that it, Keith?
Yes, that's all.
Okay. Is there any other discussion items here that need to be talked about from the commissioners?
This is Commissioner Peck. I think in light of the previous discussion about the meetings, I'd like to just clarify briefly that I'm not opposed to going to HAPO Center. I thought I said that. Maybe I didn't. But I want to speak to some of those challenges. Under state law, we have to categorize different parts of county finance. So quite literally, the county current expense would be paying a fee to our county-owned HAPO Center. And I'm not opposed to necessarily doing that. But I don't think people really understand fully how the HAPO Center fits in. It's not something that we can just go over and use at any time with no cost or burden to the HAPO Center. But I'm more than happy to go down that road and we can have the meeting at the HAPO Center. The bigger challenge is for our IT and our clerk and staff who have worked many, many hours trying to get the electronic systems that we use to record the meetings, which are all installed there in the boardroom, to function smoothly. And so the ability for the public to tune into the meetings and listen in, because not everybody's going to want to attend in person, we run the risk of jeopardizing their ability to access that meeting electronically. I'm happy to go either way, the boardroom or the HAPO Center. But when I talk about challenges, it's not challenges for the Board of Commissioners. It's challenges for our staff who want to make sure that the meetings are accessible to the public. And we risk electronic access by moving it to a location where all of our systems are not installed. But again, I'll support whichever way the board wants to go.
Commissioner Mullen, any further comment?
Yeah, I have some concerns. As a business owner myself in the community, and I don't know if this is the right time to talk about it, but I think that we should put a hiring freeze on Franklin County until the county is opened back up.
So, as at this point, we have a new hiree in the assessor's office, which I don't think will be filled at this time. And we have a position in the commissioner's office with the administrator. Are you proposing a motion to freeze hiring, Rocky? Or Mr.
Yes, I am.
Are you going to put that in the form of a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that Franklin County put a hiring freeze on until the county is opened back up.
I second. Discussion.
Commissioner, if I may, I understand the motivation for the motion, and I'm not a commissioner to weigh in on this. I do have a question that I would like to address with our HR director before we actually put that into place, in the sense that I don't want us to create a bargaining issue with any of our labor unions. We do have some positions open in corrections and the sheriff's office as well. You would certainly have a good faith assurance from me that we wouldn't hire anybody in the county administrator's office until this issue were resolved. But I don't want to speak for those departments or agencies that may have hiring in process at the moment and may have made either assurances to their bargaining unit or to individual candidates. So if the board desires to implement a general hiring freeze, I would just ask that you consider that possibility, that we wait a week to do that.
And this is Commissioner Peck. Without taking a position, since we're in discussion, without taking a position on the motion, I would just point out that this really would be far more appropriate as an agenda item where all the parties have an opportunity to evaluate it and have a proper discussion, not for it to be brought up as a motion in the 11th hour under additional business, not even on the agenda. Even our constituents who may no longer be listening in may want to weigh in on this and will not have that opportunity. So this properly should be an agenda item. And if you want to put it on for next week, I think that addresses Mr. Johnson's request as well.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And like I said, I was not sure if it was the right time to talk about it, but I do believe it needs to go on the agenda for next week.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. You can rescind your motion. You can rescind your motion if you so choose, Mr. Mull. We can't leave the meeting with the motion and a second on the table.
I will rescind the motion until next week, as long as it gets put on the agenda.
The motion has been
next week.
The motion has been rescinded, and therefore we will ask Keith to put that on the agenda for next week. Is there any other business?
I do have an additional caller, Commissioner.
Yes, please go ahead.
Good morning, Steve. Go ahead.
Good morning. This is Stephen Bauman again. I've been listening to the whole meeting here. Looks like we're a little over 2 hours long, and I'm fascinated by how difficult it is for you three commissioners to represent Franklin County, how difficult it is, even though we're allowed to be open, according to the governor, how difficult it is to figure out how to do that. Are there costs involved with this? Absolutely. Does it cost to use the HAPO Center? Absolutely. It costs to use the commissioners' chambers. Your job as the three commissioners of Franklin County is to figure out how to represent the residents and the citizens of Franklin County, not to figure out the excuses of how difficult it is to do your jobs. You guys need to get together and figure out how to do the hard work that is representing Franklin County. If that means going to the HAPO Center, get together, figure out what needs to be done and do it. I'm amazed how difficult it is to do some of the stuff you guys have discussed this morning. Do your jobs. Represent the people of Franklin County. If that cost, make good decisions on those costs and do it. Represent the people of Franklin County. The businesses and the people of Franklin County are suffering right now, and most of what I've heard is reasons why we can't do it and why it's taken a while to do it. From the prosecutor's office, well, we have to figure this out. We need to take time. Why don't we already have a plan? It's time to represent. Thank you. That's all I had to say.
Thank you. I believe that's all, Mr. Chairman.
With that, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.